Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. I'm Tom. You know Justin. This is LadyCarnivory. I almost said carnivore lady, but it didn't.
It works.
And the new person on the board is Barbara, Act Like Barbara from Instagram. This is our first interview with her. I was really looking forward to getting to know her, and I'm going to get to meet her in person next weekend, which is probably after this video comes out anyways. But here we are. We're here to hear Barbara's story. So Barbara, why don't you just tell us, how did you come to carnivory?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think the story starts like 3 years ago. I remember watching Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan talk about the carnivore diet. And it's funny, I rewatched it recently. And he kind of doesn't endorse it. He's like, it's this crazy diet. No one should try it unless you have to. But you know, he looked amazing. You know, he's so clearly in better health as he was talking about just eating meat. So that kind of planted the seed. And I had been experiencing digestive issues, I want to say most of my life, certainly the last 5 years, just like eating was like walking in a minefield. I never knew what was going to hurt later. So it was that sort of thing that I was dealing with. And so I tried a lot of things like paleo, Whole30. I never did keto, weirdly, but I definitely went into the paleo stuff. And not even that didn't work. So I was confused, like, this is supposed to be the best diet. What's happening? And so finally I went to a GI doctor late last year and in September, and I tested positive for SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And now that I had a name, I started absorbing every podcast on the topic that I could. And that's when paleo led into, you know, obviously like the low FODMAP, AIP stuff. And then from there, I went into GAPS, the GAPS diet, Weston A. Price, and it was starting to be a little overwhelming. I was trying them too. I was buying foods with those ideas in mind, hoping that something would work. And honestly, it was always just so complicated that I got overwhelmed and I would quit, or I would let myself cheat because mentally I couldn't handle all of the rules. I had to cook this a certain way, but I couldn't eat that vegetable, but I could eat that one. It was just a lot. So finally, in all my podcast listenings, on some of the paleo podcasts, I think it was Chris Kresser had Paul Saladino on. And what Paul was saying made a lot of sense. And I thought, you know, if I'm supposed to be eating like low FODMAP, technically carnivore is, you know, it's not eating any of the high FODMAP foods. So I thought, well, maybe I should just do that, and at least it would be simple. And then what also helped was Natasha Campbell McBride, the creator of the GAPS diet, went on Michaela Peterson's podcast and talked about how you really could do carnivore as GAPS, like basically GAPS is in a way. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe that's the way to go. So that's how I found it, really. And I started January. I dabbled in it late last year, but didn't fully commit until January 1st of 2021. And I have been carnivore ever since.
Yeah, you certainly mentioned quite a few names that we're all familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like a bit of an anomaly that you didn't start with keto first, because a lot of us did, but
I know. Yeah, so many people do.
But you know,
I didn't. So, haha, speak for yourselves. My journey is closer to Barbara's journey, doing more paleo, FODMAP, GAPS, and carnivore. Definitely feel you on that train. And yeah, I remember. So my primary issue for carnivore that I've been trying to treat forever was the migraines, you know, and so it felt like everything would make me sick, you know, basically. And so I totally feel you on that. So, I mean, when do you remember first having symptoms? Like how far back in your life do you think there was something there, but it just wasn't identified?
You know, that's a good question. I I know that first of all, I was raised on Chef Boyardee ravioli and you know, Lipton cup of noodle soup, and also the actual cup of noodle soup. And I drank at least for many, many years, like 3 Pepsis a day at least. So, and my afternoon snack was like a full candy bar and a soda with it, which to me, I would like gag right now if I, if I drank
Right?
that.
You couldn't handle that much sugar.
No way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was lucky in one sense that I wasn't the type to gain weight. But if anything, that would obviously hurt me in the end because it allowed me to keep eating that way and not even really notice, you know, the problems that were happening. And of course, I experienced really severe depression and anxiety through my 20s. Just like all of that, I don't even have an inkling of that anymore, which is amazing. I feel like a lot of that I worked through to some degree, but I know that carnivore is obviously going to keep me up and out of that cloud going forward. So yeah, so sorry to get back to your actual question. I mean, I think I experienced symptoms here and there, but I think over the course of my life, they just got worse and worse. And I know I was vegetarian for 3 years. I want to say starting in like 2009. And I mean, I finally stopped because I was lightheaded all the time and I just craved steak. Steak is my favorite. So it was like ridiculous that I was trying to be vegetarian. But yeah, I think that I'm sure contributed. That it couldn't have not, I would say. So even back then, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned McBride and the GAPS diet, and I came across that a lot because I was in quite a few groups for autistic people, and there's quite a few people that try that in that arena. And it's interesting to note that a lot of people with autism do better on it, but then they seem to do even better on strict carnivore.
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
So
that's really cool. I mean, that's good to know. Yeah.
I have a question. So as someone who came to carnivore from keto, like the idea of eating a lot of animal fat was totally cool. Like I was like, awesome, fat, perfect. But I'm not as familiar with paleo. Was the fat intake intimidating to you at all, or how did you adjust to that?
You know, it wasn't intimidating, but it probably should have been. And the reason I say that is I don't think I was eating enough fat in my first month or two of carnivore as a result, because I wasn't really thinking about it. And I know the big pull for me for carnivore was the fact that I didn't have to track. I could just eat meat. That was the only rule. So I kind of dug my heels in against looking at my macros and looking at that sort of thing. But I will say around month 4 and 5, I realized there were still some lingering GI issues. And I think it was the inability to process all of the fat. I was probably still working on that and healing that. And then I started taking digestive enzymes around then as well. And that really improved things. So now, yeah, so mentally, I didn't like really even think about the fat aspect because really the people I was following at the time didn't talk about eating high fat. I wasn't following, you know, those particular carnivores that would recommend that, thankfully, or else I really would have. I mean, I will say, carnivore adaptation is no joke, and I am happy to talk about that right now because I don't think enough people do. Because some people are lucky and they don't experience this like terrible moment of, you know, diarrhea for the most part and other pains. But I mean, I had a full month of that and I definitely questioned my life's choices at certain points. But yeah, so fat and I are friends now, but we weren't at first.
yeah, that fat to protein ratio is always a tricky thing. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I really thought about a lot lately is when people are getting started, you got to kind of judge the people by the personality, because some people really are just, they want to dive in head first and they want to do it to the nth degree. And some people are better off easing into it. And if you can ease into it, those GI issues can be nothing or very minor. So that's something to consider, but some people just need to go cold turkey and quit the carbs or whatever else they're eating. And then then some people just, doesn't matter how they do it, they don't really seem to have much of an adjustment. They might be a little lethargic or whatever because they're not used to metabolizing that much fat. And the other thing is, people's idea of what a lot of fat is all over the place.
Right, that's true. What do you guys tend to eat? I know, JC, you have a specific goal right now, but generally speaking, do you guys have goals with fat, or do you just?
We could start with JC because she's got it. I'm sure she's got it nailed down. What are you doing right now?
Oh, right now, I don't recommend anyone eat this way. I'm doing a pretty not extreme, just moderate calorie deficit, and I'm eating like 70% protein, 30% fat. In my happy place, like in my carnivore happy place, I'm eating like 40 to 50% fat, 50 to 60% protein. Outside of those ranges, I either have digestive issues, don't recomp the way I want to, so I stop muscle building, or I start having like poor mental health symptoms. So it was really just trial and error for me. I spent a lot of time at the beginning of my carnivore journey just eating the meat that I craved when I craved it. I would track occasionally just to see where I was at out of curiosity, but it was never a specific goal for me until I made my goal of competing in the bikini competition.
How about Justin? What do you eat?
Yeah, I don't track anything. I used to do some tracking, more for potassium to sodium ratios because of the angiostatin protocol, and kept my fat to protein roughly 50-50. I think I'm probably a little more like 30, 45, maybe hitting 50 from time to time, fat to protein ratios, but I really don't track, and it depends on what I have that day. So I've been cooking a lot of brisket lately, which is a bit more on the fattier side, but I noticed that, so again, I don't know how fatty brisket is specifically, but it's probably fattier than ribeye, if not just as fatty. And I do know I do still experience some loose stool if 2 or 3 days of brisket, I'm hitting that as my main meals. The fat still just kind of goes through me. And then another way I'm upping my fat right now, again, not tracking it, is I've been making ice cream. So like a dozen eggs, like 16 ounces of heavy cream, so that's like all like fat and stuff like that. And I tend to eat quite a bit of cheese, probably more than I should. So you got some of that dairy fat in there as well. So I don't know where I'm at. I'm kind of all over the place. Other times I'll buy a rotisserie chicken and just rip into that, as like a meal. So I just kind of whatever I'm interested in at the time. My main concern is electrolyte balancing and mineral balancing over fat to protein ratios, just because of where I'm coming from and how I approach the diet. I am also trying to lean out myself, especially stubborn belly fat. And so I think going leaner cuts, like in New York, I feel like is perfect for me. I actually have a hard time eating ribeyes daily. The fat does kind of ground me down a little bit too much. And not that I feel like I'm gaining weight, I just feel heavier after eating like a 13, 14 ounce ribeye. Whereas I can do, the same amount in New York and still feel like I'm kind of lighter than air and things like that. So I don't know if that's the fat, I don't know if that's the cut, but yeah, that's kind of been my experience. So my favorite cut is a New York strip when I can get them.
So Barbara, where are you at with what you're eating successfully these days?
I was tracking pretty well until July. July's been a hectic month for me, but before that, I was actually hitting 70-30 fat, which I worked my way up there, I'm sure, because I actually didn't like ribeyes that much when I first started eating carnivore.
A heretic.
And but I love New York's. That was my thing. Always ate New York
Yeah, I
strips.
love New York's. Oh, that's good.
But I will say in the last month or two, I have discovered how amazing ribeyes can be. But that said, just like Justin, if I tend to get big ones too. They're like 1.5 pounds, and I'll eat it. I'll eat the whole thing, but again, there's some issues later potentially. So yeah, I just have to be careful, but I am still playing with it. I wouldn't say that I've settled on 70-30. And actually quite often I'll get more 60-40, but yeah, I'm still figuring out what works for me. I mean, I've only been carnivore like 6.5 months. So yeah.
Well, it looks like you're wearing a Whoop strap, so I'm guessing you're very active.
That's funny because I got it, and I actually got it mostly for sleep tracking, the opposite.
That's the most important function that I get out of my watch.
Yeah, and that's really the only thing I cared about. And I realized after I downloaded the Whoop app and everything, I'm like, I never hit my, require or what I'm recommended to work out. I just feel like a failure every day. Not really, but I'm like, I am not an athlete. This was not for me. This doesn't count walks. So, oh well.
Yeah, maybe you need to go Fitbit. It's a little kinder.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it'll count your steps for you.
Right. It'll make me feel better.
Yeah, I had when I started looking at how many calories I was burning, I realized that I need to look at this all back the other way, because I'm trying to meet a protein demand, and my caloric requirement goes from over 3,000 calories, over 5,000 calories, depending on the day. So then I try and hit my protein of, say 2 grams per pound of body weight, and then look at how much fuel I took in. And then I oftentimes on a day when I work out a lot, I have to add in some more fuel, some more fat at the end. So that's basically how I do it. But I mostly eat like New York strips or sirloin, or sometimes tri-tip, and what's the other one I'm trying to think of?
Chuck roast.
Yeah,
London
chuck roast.
Okay.
You got it, chuck roast. Yeah. So I just looked at one at the market like an hour ago, and somehow I couldn't remember the name. But anyways, yeah. So I and I'm with all these people all the time that are always high fat, ribeye. And so I was like, okay, I put my priority on lifting and strength training, but then I'm like, okay, I've been doing this long enough. I'm gonna also focus on getting leaner at the same time, and try not to compromise any strength, because I'm always trying to add muscle. And so I got 3 ribeye roasts in a row, big roast, ate the whole thing, and went, this is clearly too much fat. It felt like too much fat. It penciled out to be too much fat. And then I'm like, okay, let's go leaner cuts. And I went down like 3 pant sizes before I knew it. My girlfriend's like, you've got to get some new clothes, because it looks like you just cinched up a gunny sack around you. Of course, I'm not paying any attention. So I ordered some smaller shorts, and they didn't have the ones I wanted. So I want one more size. I ordered some that were 2 sizes smaller. And by the time I got them, that was already loose. So I was like, wow, really fast, So yeah, so there's definitely something to be said for dialing in the right amount of the right ratio of protein and fat for your goals, because not everybody just lives on ribeyes and gets exactly what they want. So
right.
I think it's really dependent on your activity level as well. Because the people I see eating super high fat are not necessarily as active as the people who are not. And I think when you are using your muscles more, your muscles probably have a higher protein demand.
That's a really good point.
I think she's 100% correct about that. I've had the same sort of observation. So, and it makes a difference. I mean, I'm like twice Justin's size. So, he can eat like a animal, and it almost seems to matter less what ratio he's eating than me, but he's more sensitive to things like give him migraines, right? Mm-hmm. So we have 2 different approaches to how we eat, and I spent enough time with the guy. The guy's raided my refrigerator enough for me to know not to challenge him to an eating contest. And that's the other thing. Everybody loves OMAD, they're eating once a day. I could not eat 5,000 calories in one sitting. I couldn't even come close.
Yeah,
And
OMAD killed me. My digestive system, that was worse. I mean, that's worse than just the high fat in general over the course of a day, but to throw it into one meal, yeah, couldn't do it.
yeah. So I'd probably do better if I eat like every 4 hours or something. Especially when I'm lifting, it works out way better.
So what does a typical day of eating look like for you, Barbara?
Well, lately, I've been doing 2 1/3 pound patties of beef every morning for breakfast. I used to also do some eggs with it, but I am trying to cut back on eggs in case those are causing issues. I love eggs, but I'll have them occasionally. And for lunch, a lot of times it's been patties again, but this time from McDonald's or Wendy's because they're close to work and it's quick and easy for me to do.
Ooh, are you getting Baconators?
I'm not actually. I did, but I looked up the ingredients of their bacon. Big shock. It's not great, and they were hurting my stomach. So, but if I buy bacon and I can see the ingredients and it's relatively clean, it seem to be okay. So I make them at home.
You need a BYOB, bring your own bacon.
Yeah, exactly. And then for dinner, if I'm doing everything right in life, I'll have a steak. And that's like my favorite thing. Just finish the day with a nice steak, either New York or ribeye. But sometimes I'll make a pot roast. And so that means leftovers for a few days, which is awesome. And yeah, that's typical. That's my usual.
So where are you at with things like spices and sauces and stuff like that? What do you tolerate?
I've introduced some recently. Again, July, because I'm moving in a couple weeks, I've kind of let myself be a little bit more lax. So, for example, I made pulled pork the other day and I put in cumin and chili powder even. And I was thinking I might regret this, but I'm going to try it. And it seemed to be okay, I think, for the most part. What wasn't as okay was adding the hot sauce. I think that was probably where I crossed the line. But I really like steak and burger patties. I like with just salt. That they're perfect that way. It's really only like the slow cooked meats that I go a little crazy with, garlic or something.
Got to keep the vampires away.
Right. How are you guys on that? Do you guys keep it simple or are you more creative with spices?
Yeah, so I've been hitting the spices and things like that a little hard lately, just because I have been doing more of the slowly cooked meats, the brisket. I just got in a fight with the pork shoulder. My carving skills need work. Let's just put it that way. A little bit got on the floor, a little bit on my foot, a little bit on the carving station or the little, yeah, no. Need a few tutorials on that. But anyway, so I've got that going, and so my favorite thing right now is the Hawaiian primal barbecue sauce. It is so sweet, so delicious. It's got 7 grams of carbs in it, but like I've been doing the brisket with some cheddar cheese on it and throwing some of that barbecue sauce on it, and it is like my favorite thing right now. So I plan on doing the same with this pork shoulder. It's going to be cheddar cheese, the Hawaiian barbecue sauce, and I was doing the same thing, well, minus the cheese on pork ribs as well. And I bought a couple of like all spices, you know what I mean, as well. And so I throw that in there as well. And so I can't do those meats without seasonings and stuff like that. They're way too dry. Well, not dry necessarily, but the flavor just gets really tiring really fast. So it does make it hard to eat it, for lunch the next day, lunch the next day, lunch the next day,
Right.
And so the Hawaiian sauce and the cheese really helps with that. Burger patties, can't do them plain, but I like them with cheese. Cheese and bacon, of course, is amazing. I've kind of done that since the beginning. So I'm trying to put myself back when I was roughly at the 6-month mark. And I remember I was eating 3 meals a day, And I was doing, my breakfast was like 2 or 3 burger patties, like 3 eggs and cheese. I remember it was like my morning meals. Then I think for lunch would be like a steak or a roast, and then dinner like another steak. So I was trying to really heal and really eat quite a bit in those first 6 months, especially. Um, and so it sounds like you started right with just being fine with 2 meals. And then I also kind of wanted to get into um, was your healing gradual? Because I remember my first like month and a half sucked. It was horrible. I had like a migraine the first month entirely. I was sleeping for 2 hours a day, like 2 hour naps. Now, mind you, I had just gotten out of a really horrific car crash. So I was changing my diet and healing from a car wreck at the same time, which is probably why I was eating so much, taking the beef organs, and sleeping all the time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think my first month and a half, like you said, similarly was really rough, adaptation wise. But I think, I mean, I'm sure I was healing. There were lots of other problems that were going away during that time, which is why I kept going. I mean, if I didn't see that so quickly, I don't know that I would have made it through. But thankfully, yeah, carnivore was helping with a lot of stuff. So for my gut healing, yeah, I think I started taking some digestive enzymes in that second month, again, to help with all of the adaptation. But then I took it a little bit more seriously a little later on, and I really think that supported it. But yeah, I do feel like every month things get a little bit better. I believe it was May, I went all beef, and that was actually my best month. And that's why ever since then, I do want to, again, because this month is hectic for me, I want to let myself have bacon, eggs occasionally, but um, I know that I feel best with beef only, so I will hopefully return to that once I move. So.
How about you, JC? Where are you with the seasonings?
Currently, I'm just doing salt. However, I do cook for the other carnivores in my home, my mom and my stepdad, and they are very early in their carnivore journeys. And so they really enjoy seasoning, and it makes it really palatable for them to continue eating this way, especially my stepdad. He's just like not fully on board with carnivore at all. But if I can, like today, I gave him a carnivore Monte Cristo sandwich, and if I can convince him to eat that, it's like a win. So I don't see any problem with leveraging seasonings. It's just something personally, like the further I go in my carnivore journey, I just don't crave that stuff as much. I just want salt all the time.
Yeah, I noticed like because I was used to doing steak with salt and pepper, or maybe like a Montreal seasoning, and I noticed when I stopped putting pepper on it, I felt better. So
Mm-hmm.
like, and I think that's just because I was eating it every day. Because if I do it occasionally now, I don't notice anything, but I'm not really drawn to it like I was, and I could go back and forth. Sometimes I salt my meat and sometimes I don't. Sometimes it sounds awesome and sometimes I could care less. So there's something in it raw because if I get a nice big roast, I eat the first half of it just raw usually, or maybe even 3/4 of it before I start cooking it. So I took a cue from Emily, Sometimes it pays to be lazy. Just don't even cook it, just cut it up and eat it. So and then when it's raw, I almost never want salt on it. But when it's cooked, I tend to want salt on it. So, and I experiment with seasonings here and there. I grew up eating all kinds of hot sauces. So, like I had steak and eggs with Chipotle sauce on it this morning. It was fantastic. And I didn't notice anything. I went to the gym, felt fine. And then, but the other day, my friend gave me this. He must have given me like 5 or 6 pounds of bluefin tuna, like
It's a good
fresh
friend.
out.
Yeah.
With that, yeah, it's a good
Yep.
friend. Yeah, no kidding. And I was eating it all sashimi style. And the first plate, I put a bunch of wasabi on there. That didn't go so good because I was on my way to the gym and I was like, man, I feel really queasy. What is that? And
Oh,
then I burped up some wasabi and went, yeah, maybe I shouldn't hit the wasabi so hard. So,
no.
but
It's so good.
yeah, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? You live and learn. But yeah, I tried. Justin was telling me about the primal barbecue sauces. I went over to Sprouts over here. Most of it was sold out. So I bought what they had and I tried it. It's pretty good. And then I found some other like sugar-free barbecue sauce. I tried a little bit of it. I haven't really eaten that much of it yet, but it seemed pretty good. So I might try a little sauce here and there, just for a little variety. I tend to season with things like cheese. Like I noticed, like when I want something different, some shredded Parmesan, is like next level, or even multiple cheeses. So like a lot of times, if I tend to cook a lot of steaks ahead of time, so because prep my food so it's ready for the week. So if I'm reheating at home, I'll season it with some cheese, and melt it in, or something. But most of the time, I just eat steak. I'll cook like 5 or 6 New York strips at a time, sometimes 10. And I have them all ready to go in the fridge. So most of the time, I'm at work eating, so it's not like I have a bunch of condiments laying around. I
Yeah.
just eat it the way it is.
Yeah, I would put cheese on everything as well if I could, but cheese and I don't get along. It's very sad. I'm a dairy-free carnivore, but
Mm,
hopefully not forever. Hopefully at some point I can eat it. But
yeah.
Yeah, I was so you came from paleo as well, right? So I
yeah.
was paleo like 6 years. And so those that don't know what paleo is, it's basically gluten-free, dairy-free, essentially are the two big rules. And so when I came to carnivore, I was like, what? Cheese and milk are back on the menu?
Right.
Yes. Because I don't know about you, but I used to do the vegan cheeses, so like the diet cheese and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, a vegan cheese that melts, was like the struggle.
Yeah.
And so now having real cheese again is really happy, but again, it can be abused. I know myself as well. I do my absolute best when I'm beef, salt, and water as well, with occasional seafood, salmon, shrimp. I know that's me at my best, but I'm not trying to be my best. I'm trying to be, it's summer. I want to change it up a little bit, do things a little differently. Now, I know we talked about, the 6 months and things like that. Now, for me, one of the first things I noticed was energy and mental, well, not having a dark cloud over my head. Maybe you struggled with some of that yourself before carnivore. And for me, it started out really gradual, of like 1 hour out of the day, I would have energy and not be sad. And then it went to like 2 hours a day, and then like 3 hours a day, and then like literal like switches going on and off. And that is what kept me staying carnivore. Was that somewhat similar to you?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I noticed it like as it happened, as much as maybe at some point I realized like actually I'm waking up from sleep and I'm actually awake. I'm not groggy. I'm not, trying to stay in bed longer and like struggling through the first half of the day. So I think that's where I noticed the big difference. Um, and now it's funny because I will cheat like about once a month. I'll plan it out and I notice that each time it's so much less worth it each time that I let that happen, because it takes a full week at least to recover. And during that week, I've got that brain fog and I'm slow and I'm not sleeping well. It's shocking how, and I'm talking like one thing, like a donut, I'm not going like crazy all day long. I mean, yes, it's a sugar bomb.
Do not.
Do not.
I know. I am realizing as I go along that I don't really need those anymore. And it's not even helping me mentally anymore. In fact, it's hindering me. So, but my point is when I do, that's really when I notice it, is when I do cheat. I am reminded instantly that my brain is not as happy.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yep.
Easter of 2020, let me tell you.
Did you eat a chocolate Easter bunny or something?
Oh, I fell off the wagon for like a week. I was eating potato chips, ice cream, all sorts of crap. And I should show you the before and after pictures. It was like a 1 week span of just eating whatever carbs I wanted.
Mm.
And I was like so bloated and inflamed. You could see the inflammation in my body. And that was what convinced me, like, oh, no, I can't do this. Carnivore is 1,000,000% the way to go. And now my biggest temptation is cashews.
Mm. Those gnarly cashews will get you, man. They're so sweet and tasty.
I recently learned that they're like horrible in terms of environmental impact and human impact. Like they're caustic to process, and it's little children typically processing them, so it like burns their hands. So it's easier for me to stay away now.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't eat
Oh,
cashews,
yeah.
guys.
The last thing I gave up was almonds, and they were the sprouted almonds that were like $18 a pound. And I ended up eating like a half pound in a night. And I woke up the next day with my stomach feeling like in my head and my stomach just being in so much pain. I think I was just binging Netflix, and like it was like my replacement for popcorn. So because I was paleo, popcorn, like I would go through like that Boom Chicka Pop popcorn, those big bags. I would go through 2 bags of those a week. That's
Wow.
how much popcorn I would eat, just because it was my snack. It was kind of like my everything. Anytime I felt like hungry, I would just eat, munch down on some of that. Yeah. And and so I needed something to be like, because man, what am I gonna do when I'm watching Netflix, or gaming or whatever, how am I gonna survive without eating anything? So I went to almonds, and yeah, but then like I bought a bag, ate half the bag, half a pound bag, and then I was like, oh, everything hurts. And I just threw them away. Like the next morning, I was like, and I've stayed away from the almonds. I did pistachios for a little bit because again, for going to the movies, I would bring in pistachios and eat those. And I did kind of okay, but now I can go watch a movie, watch Netflix, and not need anything, which is where you want to get to. Is just you don't need it, you don't need it,
Mm,
and being able to just play that out the whole way and not not having to grab for anything, unless I'm at Tom's house watching a movie, then I would get whatever meat was around jerky and smoked Gouda is what I would end up snacking
He
on.
never had smoked Gouda, and he came to my house, and it's like it's like a giant rat. He could eat like a pound or 2 by himself. It's crazy. So, yeah, I think that's how I wound up going from keto to carnivore. Is I noticed like almonds, like I noticed I was like getting a heartburn, my stomach didn't feel right, and I called my buddy that we started at the same time. He's like, "Were you eating almonds?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, I can't eat them either. I don't feel good." And I looked it up, and sure enough, they're hard to digest. And then little by little, I went through all the other foods. Cauliflower, not so good. Spinach, not so good. Coconut oil, not so good. Pretty soon, I'm like, and then I started thinking. One day, I'm like, what if I just ate this entire package of bacon? And I ate this whole package of bacon, and I was like, I feel amazing, And then it reminded me of like, you ever go out for sashimi and like you're just eating like premium raw fish, and then like when you're done, you're like, you feel great.
mm.
Problems with digestion. And then I was telling people about it, and they're like, oh, you remember great aunt so and so? She ate a half pound of bacon every morning. She lived to be 114. It's good for you. And then I found all these communities online, and I was like, hey, I don't have to eat all this other crap. I can just eat meat. you know and then you feel amazing, and you're like, you want to tell everybody.
It's
And then
funny
they
what a
think you're
relief
crazy.
that is. Sorry. Yeah, it's just funny that it's such a relief to not have to eat all of the other things.
Mm.
Now it just, one thing, one category of things. It's the best.
Hmm. Yeah, one section of the store.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just peruse all the cuts, and all the tasty animals, and
Have you
all this.
gone shopping with other people? Grocery shopping with others is like a really weird experience now. Because it's like, wait, you're grabbing vegetables or checking if this is ripe, what's on sale, this is by the pound, and then, they oftentimes have to go to like 5 sections of the store to make one thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's so much time wasted at the grocery store, you know, it just all the time, of course, cooking and everything like that.
I've had that
too.
conversation with other people that I was in line with, and they're like, you just eat meat? Isn't that really expensive? And then I look at my basket and I look at their basket. Their basket's full of all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, there's every kind of condiment, chip, beverage, blah, 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 you know, just on and on and on. And then my cart's just got some meat in it. And I'm like, well, you've got to buy all that. And I just buy this. What do you think? And I think a lot of people realize that they spend less money on food when they stop eating all that stuff. So
Yeah, I know I was wasting a lot of money on buying ingredients for one recipe, and then I would have full bottles of those ingredients forever until they went bad. Yeah, no, meat is a lot easier, obviously.
So when I started, I was doing steaks with like squash and zucchini because they were like the low carb vegetables, and mushrooms. That's how I started, actually, steak with those. And then what happened to me is that I forgot what happened, but I just started eating the steak by itself, and then the zucchini and mushrooms went bad. And I just didn't buy them again after that. It's like, oh, they rotted. I guess I haven't been eating it. That's kind of like my really humble beginnings. I would really like to touch on the SIBO issue, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Now, where was that in the, like, is that something that's new you realized, or is it you think it's something you had all along? And then I know Michaela Peterson had to take like those fecal pills or whatever. So
Right.
how did you treat yours, and what was that? How'd you find that out? Well, that story.
Well, I would probably bet that I had SIBO for at least 3 years, just based on symptoms. I mean, basically your general IBS symptoms, that's what it was. So yeah, what I had to do, first of all, I went to a conventional GI doctor to get checked out, just as a starting point. I walked in skeptical that they could help me, of course.
And about when was this? If
Oh,
you don't
sorry,
mind?
yes, September of 2020.
Got it.
Yeah. So so I went in there and I told her my symptoms, and she immediately said, I think you have SIBO or leaky gut. And I was actually shocked and hopeful, because a lot of conventional doctors don't even think leaky gut is a thing. So I was thinking, okay, maybe this chick is actually smart or something. But
I say that all the time.
yeah, right. So I tried to tell her a little bit about the diet. At that point I was trying paleo again and that sort of thing. And I was telling her about that. And she said, oh, no, that doesn't matter. Oh, my diet doesn't matter. Like, I just remember thinking, okay, never mind, hope quashed. And then she said, well, we'll give you a test. You have to drink this sugar liquid and then breathe into a tube for intervals over 90 minutes, like an hour later. And that's how they test you. And I guess I was so high in bacterial overgrowth because the very first breath I did.
Well, I mean, they did have you drinking sugar. So.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but that makes all of the bacteria come alive and get happy and, cause gases to come out of your mouth. And that's what they're testing, which sounds really pleasant. But yeah, that's, so that was September. And what she did was she prescribed antibiotics, which I was really skeptical of taking, because in my research at that point, because I went home and dove into anything and everything about SIBO, quite often antibiotics causes it. So why am I treating it with that? But I went and saw a more holistic doctor who actually agreed and said, you know what, antibiotics, you do probably need to take some to kill things off, but then we'll kind of support your gut in healing after the fact. So I took the conventional antibiotics. It was about 2 weeks. I do know that Chris Kresser, who's a big, functional medicine guy in the space, he actually, I think, normally would recommend doing a full month of them, which makes sense to me. I felt no symptom change after the 2 weeks. So I was kind of disappointed. So then my holistic doctor, who I went back to, said, okay, those didn't work. There's an herbal remedy you can try, and it takes a whole month. The pills are disgusting. It's really fun. And each thing is expensive. I mean, the antibiotics without insurance would have been $2,000, the conventional ones. And then the herbal ones, which my insurance didn't cover, was like $250 or $300.
Wow.
So it's a lot. But anyway, so I took the herbal, and by that point though, and this is where the story becomes carnivore. So I took the conventional antibiotics in 2020. So I was not carnivore yet, didn't work. I took the herbal ones kind of late December. So before I really committed to carnivore, but into my first month of carnivore. So, and also my holistic doctor said carnivore sounds fine. You know, basically, yeah, as long as you're low FODMAP, eat whatever you want. That was her suggestion. So I did the herbal, and again, that ended about in the middle of my adaptation through carnivore. So I don't really know what was happening, if my body was freaking out at the higher fat intake or all of the meat, or if the antibiotics were causing some of my issues. But I basically, once I finished that, I was still having some GI issues, but I kind of felt like at least now I was on carnivore and I was on a track to healing. So I basically abandoned any doctor advice at that point and just full steam ahead into carnivore. So that's kind of where I'm at. Do I know if SIBO was cured by carnivore or not? I'm not sure. I know that, like you said, you mentioned Michaela Peterson, she had C. diff, which is a different, it's very similar, but it's like a different, more awful bacteria from what I understand. And she actually had to take the fecal transplant pills, double pilled them herself because they're illegal to obtain, and took them orally. And I guess that is how she cured hers. So I didn't have to do that. Thankfully.
Well, on that note, I was watching when Dr. Silas was on, I always call her Judge Judy, but it's
Nutrition with Judy.
Nutrition with Judy. Yeah. And he was saying that one of the treatments for Crohn's disease now was to sort of nuke the biome with antibiotics, and then put people on a carnivore diet, and then the correct bacteria starts growing back in the intestine. So This is like, so we see this over and over again. It's like we get the intestinal diseases confused because we talk to so many people that had whatever diverticulosis or SIBO or Crohn's disease or whatever. They go on carnivore and it gets better. And oftentimes that's, they're in the middle of a treatment or something. So I'm sure they both contribute, but it seems like our digestive tract somehow evolved to eat meat and doesn't like all that roughage and sugar and stuff. I don't know.
Don't scrub your colon.
Yeah. Justin found this like 1950s illustration, and it was a sales ad for celery. Oh, I think I have it.
You should pull it up.
No.
So they're selling celery as a nature's toothbrush for your colon.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me see if I can find that. I was looking for it when we were recording yesterday and I couldn't find it, and then I found it afterwards. So
yeah, it's amazing.
It's hilarious. You're like, wow, this is how this all starts.
Yep.
So did you have other things going on? Because I remember, I'm always interested in childhood and things like that, and obviously only share what you're comfortable with. I'm always curious about childhood trauma. Like I was a sick child. Like I constantly had throat infections, sinus infections. I mean, I was probably taking courses of antibiotics once or twice a year from age like 5 or 6, yearly. So I know like everything was completely destroyed. And now like I totally don't get sick. But oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right?
I don't want to see this.
Speaking of trauma.
Right? Sorry, I just traumatized us all with a vegetable.
That celery was being aggressive.
Yes.
It was.
Yes. And
really happy about it too.
So happy about it. I know. Wow.
Oh man. Well, to go from that into trauma, yes, actually. I did have a fun childhood trauma. I was sexually abused kind of chronically for a year. So, and that was at age 12, 13. So yes, I'm sure that had an effect. I mean, I know that I developed my depression and anxiety kind of led right out of that, obviously. So yeah. So I'm sure that's connected. And so beyond the crappy diet that I talked about earlier, on top of that, having that happen, yeah, absolutely, definitely contributed, I'm sure. Not to bring it down. I'm good
Right.
now.
We could throw the celery back up there.
Yeah, let's
Punish everybody with a little more celery. Yeah, nature's colon brush. All right.
I always
Yeah.
joke that carnivores were all kind of like anime characters. Jesus.
I wonder if it's
Ooh
probably
la
there's.
la.
I don't think there's a copyright on that. I think we found our shirt. We need to put like "Don't brush your colon" or something like that. Just have that as our first shirt design out there. It'll be
The way that man is
That's it.
holding his butt cheeks, I cannot.
Ribbed for extra pleasure.
Yeah, that's the most disturbing part of it.
Oh my God. It gets worse the longer you look at it.
Oh yeah, it like he's wearing like a monocle, he's like a menacing smile, just everything. Yeah, that's going on a shirt. 100%.
Yeah.
That's gonna be our shirt for sure.
Well,
JC, you were saying something serious, I think, before that happened again.
I think it takes a certain level of questioning superiors in order to become carnivore, because you do have to question like medical doctors. I had the same experience where a medical doctor started giving me advice outside of carnivore, and I was like, clearly you can see I'm doing so much better, and you're recommending I do the complete opposite. So I think that there's a certain level of questioning authority figures required, or for at least a large portion of carnivores. And so in that way, I think a lot of us have histories where we question authority, and something has triggered that. And so I always joke, like, it's not a joke, but in anime, all of the like children characters have really tragic childhoods. And so carnivores, I think a large percentage of us have these tragic childhoods. So we're basically an anime,
Right.
is my point.
Yeah, and we're superheroes as a result.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
that's awesome.
Well, I mean, I think it's more than just questioning the authority letting you down. I mean, I have a history of 15 years of ritualistically seeing doctors, getting antibiotics, getting this prescription, getting that prescription, and taking the prescriptions as prescribed, doing like everything and only getting worse, or only finding myself. And it's like, there was no goal to get me out of the office. It was just, oh, just come back, pay another $15 copay. You have insurance. Be blessed that you have insurance. This is a blessing that you can come here and actually get the antibiotics and things which I get it. Like, if you got an infection and it's a bad infection, like, I get it. There's millions of kids around the world, maybe not millions, but that die from typical infections from a young age. And the traditional medicine, I get it. I was born with asthma and jaundice, and there were a few times where I have been rushed to the emergency room and given something and saved my life. That has happened to me, for sure. But as far as this whole chronic illness thing, Western standard medical practices are a complete and total failure.
Absolutely.
If it worked, we wouldn't be here. Everything I had, that was chronic, they did not solve. It only got, even getting sinus surgery, I've talked about it a number of times on here. I had, my sinus infections were so chronic and so bad, had the, ENT, the ear, nose, and throat doctor. And I had to beg him to get the surgery because I was just tired of it. And they finally did the surgery. So I have nothing in my sinus cavity. Everything is extracted. And within 6 weeks, I had another sinus infection, and they're like, oh, we're just going to have to cycle you on and off antibiotics every 6 weeks. And by that time, like, it's like, I thought that that's how you get, you know, the bacteria that isn't, you know, immuno-resistant bacteria is through that. I would be a walking bacterial lab basically at that point. And by that point, I had known how bad antibiotics are, how bad it is for the gut and all that stuff that we know now. And I just said, I'm out. That was my last straw. I'm out. I'm done. Not coming back. You know, I'll figure out a way. And I have, you know, I figured out a few different things along the way. But, you know, it's one thing to question the authority, but where does that come from? They absolutely failed us, each and every one of us.
Well, I like to say we all suffer from bad information, and that includes the doctors. You know, and 2 doctors ago, I was trying to ask the doctors, like, well, does it matter if I eat this kind of food or that kind of food? This is pre-keto, pre-carnivore. And he's like, oh no, it's too many calories. You got to eat less calories, and you'll be healthy. And da 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 da. And so then I was like, yeah, this guy's not really into this. So I asked for another doctor, and the next doctor, somewhere in there, I was doing carnivore, and I was like, man, I want to get some lab tests, see what's going on, you know. And I had the speech prepared. I was like, look, man, I don't expect you to condone it. Just work with me, you know. And I told him, and he's looking at my test results. He's like, well, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it, because I never get these kind of results, you know. And then as I talked to him another visit later, he's like, I'm really interested in this. He's like, I was interested in nutrition when I got into medicine, and now I'm, you know, general practice. He's like, but my wife just had a knee replaced from arthritis. And I think this doctor's younger than me, and I assume his wife was younger than that. So I think he said something like that. And so he started, and I was telling him, because I had really bad arthritis myself all over. So all of a sudden I'm like pain free, you know, and you know, everything's getting better. And so it piqued his curiosity, you know. And I don't talk to him a lot about it, but I drop off a book now and then, and I probably have to talk to him sooner or later, because I haven't seen him in over a year. But you know, I think, and I noticed from that organization, I started getting like emails, and they were talking about keto diets and stuff in a favorable way. So, you know, I think it's getting better, and I think it's, you know, doing videos like this, just it gets the information out, so people have better information and better ideas, you know. So as frustrating as doctors can be for all those people that suffered with ailments, you know, there's hope. And of course, you know, I think us just being healthier is, you know, and talking to the people around us makes an impact eventually. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have had thoughts of calling some of my old doctors and being like, hey, remember when I got, like, for example, I got ingrown hairs like monthly, and they were terrible, like painful. My dermatologist gave me this cream and some other crap and like all this medication stuff. Didn't do anything. Carnivore, instantly gone. And I just want to call her up and be like, can you not sell your like $60 creams and stuff and just tell people to go on carnivore? Because she probably wouldn't listen. But yeah, I mean, it's disappointing, but it is cool to hear stories like that. That makes me happy, for sure.
Yeah, I think little by little. And I mean, there's quite a few actual doctors in the carnivore community now. So you know, they're bound to get noticed, you know.
Provided they're allowed to keep their medical licenses.
There's
Well, you know, a lot of them have broken a lot of ground, you know, with the Fed Keys and, you know, Sean Baker and stuff like that. They came out on top miraculously. So I think they're setting a precedence that, you know, better health is better health, even if it goes contrary to the dogma, you know. So anyways, anybody got anything else, or should we wrap it up? Everybody's speechless also.
So what are your goals moving forward on carnivore? What are you looking forward to? Just increased improvement, being able to eat more eggs at one point, maybe do a little bit more muscle. Like, what do you see yourself like a year from now, 2 years from now?
Well, yeah, I'd really like to get more into a workout routine. Obviously, I think all 3 of you, I watch you guys work out on Instagram, and you guys are all amazing and inspiring. And I am looking forward to being able to do that more. I still feel like I have a little bit of healing to go. So I'm kind of between that spot where I do want to push myself and I want my body to grow and gain muscle and all of that, but I also want to give it a moment, you know, to also just enjoy the fact that it is eating the perfect human diet.
Yeah.
So I'm in that spot right now. But goal wise, yeah, I'd love to eat dairy, you know, and I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. It doesn't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be, I can never have dairy. It could be once a month. And, you know, maybe my body can handle that and it won't have, you know, a bad reaction. Same with eggs. Maybe I can do eggs on the weekends and that's not a bad thing and my body's fine with it. So I think finding that balance, you know, trying to stick to the good stuff, the steak and the beef. I prefer the grain finished beef actually, but grass-fed works as well.
I think
yeah,
that's what we're used to, you know.
yeah,
So,
that too, yeah.
mhm.
So, but yeah, just keep going, I guess. That's I'm
I-
excited for, you know, maybe some like PMS symptoms to go away. I know JC, you've talked about it took you like 9 months, right? So I'm not quite there yet. I haven't seen the difference with those symptoms yet, but I'm excited for, I mean, it can't get worse. And it's not even that bad, honestly, to begin with. So
I was carnivore for over a year before I went back to the gym. I'm not
mm,
exactly sure how long, but I probably could have gone back sooner. But I get it. It's like because we do all notice that we progressively everything's getting better. You know, you go through those drastic improvements in the beginning where you're like, well, this is like a miracle, you know. But you know, other things are because even though my arthritis went away, I think my joints were still rebuilding themselves. Right, once the inflammation was gone and all that, I think that there was still a lot of repair going on. So it probably was a good thing not to rush into the gym and start slamming weights around.
right.
So, and we know, like we talked about this before, even on the keto studies, like professional athletes, more than 2 years after their apparent fat adaptation, they were going through epigenetic changes. So their genes are actually shifting. And I think Dr. Silas touched on that. It's like in the as carnivores progress, their body just seems to get more and more efficient. So we see more and more changes. And I know dairy is a complicated subject. I love to talk about it. I could talk endlessly, but dairy is kind of a minefield for a lot of different reasons. And you might find out it's just one type of protein that bothers you, you know. And so you eat some sort of cheese where that protein has been converted into something else, or that protein's not present, and then maybe you can enjoy dairy again or something as well. So, and then who knows, down the road, intestinal microbiome is all perfect, and then maybe it digests it fine, and there's no more problems for you. So
Yeah,
we look forward to see. We're going to need a cheese and egg report out of you once a year at least.
sounds good.
Or maybe some camel milk.
Yeah, our friend Karina, she does really well on camel milk for some reason.
I'll try it.
She's a big camel milk advocate. So yeah.
I have
And
this mental image of someone milking a camel. I want to see this now.
Yeah, they do it.
Yeah.
It's quite a business in Australia, believe it or not, camel milk. So
I believe it. I
yeah.
used to milk goats and they're so tiny
Yeah.
that I can't imagine a camel would be like a two-hander, you know?
Yeah, it's a workout, I'm sure. Yeah, and then we'll start luring Barbara into our challenges, our physical challenges. Well, we did one last year where everybody was doing push-ups, and I think we were getting up there like 300 a day, and we were all exhausted.
Oh my God.
But it was awesome.
That would be cool. I would
Yeah.
be down. I would do that.
I don't know. I don't want to arm wrestle any of you, but can we do like a glute challenge?
Hey, I live on the 4th floor. Don't forget that. You might regret that challenge.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nothing like well, see JC likes I was trying to do deadlifts today, and my deadlifts are off. So you might catch me today, JC.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I was not doing well today. I was struggling, so you never know. All right. Well, this has been fun. It was really nice meeting you, Barbara. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. We're going to go slam some wings down
Yeah,
in Long Beach next weekend. That's going to be a good time.
that'll be really fun.
And it was good to see JC. I'm glad she's here. And Justin, of course, my ever-present buddy, my little brother. So,
I'm your Jamie to your Joe Rogan.
is that what it is? Jamie doesn't get the FaceTime that you get, so I don't know. Why don't you give us a sound effect real quick, Jamie?
Oh no.
Didn't even hear it.
No.
Well, hey, everybody out there, please subscribe to the channel. Getting subscribers is really important. Send links on to people who enjoy this or learn something from it. And until next time, eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't brush your colon.